What's going on, everybody? How you guys doing? It's Bobby up here with Lynn Finlay. How are you, Lynn?
I'm good, Bobby.
You changed my life. You changed my life, and I was like, I do numerology for people, so I was hanging out with Lynn, and I was doing her numbers. I almost want to pull them up, but I'm not going to pull them up. I'm going to go off of memory here. And so we were doing our session, and your numbers came up as super spiritual, like very like energetically deeply connected. So I was like, cool. And then you were talking about you have your own colonics clinic, hydrotherapy, right? And I was just like, wait a second, because I've been talking about colonics for a very long time inside of my session, outside of my work, and like super weird to say that because I haven't actually done it myself at this point. I was basically just like saying, oh, you need to get it done because it clears out your digestive system, and a lot of this energy gets like stuck on your gut, and then it can affect things like your mood. It's like a spiritual detox when you do a colonics cleanse. So if you're not too comfortable doing that, there's teas and diets and going a juicing fast or a water cleanse. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can do. And I had done all of those. I'd done everything except for a pipe up the bum. I'm like, I don't think so. And so, when you were telling me about this thing clicked, and you actually sent me the clip of when that happened. When I'm just like, ding, and the lights just went on, and I'm like, I need to get this done. And it was because of your energy. Because I was like, well, first of all, you're in a vulnerable place. Like I've never had anything up my butt before, and now you tell me you're gonna hose it out. I'm like, all right, so this is a little bit tough for me to go through. But then I also recognize the 30 years of drug abuse and like food abuse and self abuse that I was basically living my life. And I realized that, you know what, I should probably get this done, practice what I preach. And then when I got a chance to meet with you, you created a spiritual space for me inside of our session. Usually it's weird because I'm doing that for you guys where we're talking about your numbers. But then you created a space for me to make me feel really comfortable about it. And like, it was so crazy. So I was like, okay, we have to talk about this. And then I ended up getting my colonics done. And so I was super nervous, and I'm like, oh God, because I knew someone who did it, but I was like, still wasn't just saying I was going to get it done. And so I was super nervous about this, and I'm like, oh, this is so crazy. And then after we were talking about it, you're like, oh yeah, men are precious. And I'm like, it's not a good thing to say when I'm feeling kind of crazy about this. Don't just call me precious. Of course I'm precious. But I recognized the reason why I had to do it. So I was like, okay, I wanted to put something together for my audience, put some shit together, no pun intended. And I was like this was my life. I was like making all of these jokes. I'm super uncomfortable. I'm making all of these poop jokes to make sure that I was gonna be okay with this. And it was crazy because that moment where it goes in, I'm like, it's in, it's in. And then after that, it was over, and it was a really great experience. The girl who did it for us inside of the island was perfectly powerful. It was just the best thing ever. But it made me to the point where I was like, you need to get this done. Like, you need to get this done. And I was just so, so blessed that I had crossed paths with you because you really did combine two parts of the world here. One being super spiritually connected with your numbers. You got a lot of these spiritually connected, like holy space. And then you also are decided to take this onto an actual like holistic healing feeling. And I was like, okay, so I was super blessed to find you in my life. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Taking your time out of your day to do this. I had lots of questions for you. First thing I wanted to know was a little bit about you. What did you do? How come you found this? Like, how did this all come up for you?
Yeah, I have to say, Bobby, that moment where that like light bulb moment, as they say, it was like you said, hang on, so you do the hydrocolonics, like the thing like up the bum, and I was like, yeah, and you went, right. And I was like, that was the moment. Yeah, so I came across colonics about 8 years ago, and basically I just went to have one with a lady that was doing it here. And I just went because a friend said, oh my God, you need to go try this. Like, you'll feel amazing after it. And the thing for me is I'd battled for years with continual chest infections, tonsillitis. But the main thing, so my main symptom was chronic like nasal sinusitis, congestion. And that's not even talking about my bowel health. So generally constipated, which I thought was just normal because no one actually talks about like how we're meant to poo or go to the toilet. So basically, I went and saw this lady. She was amazing. And I was sniffly in the nose. And she said, "Oh, are you sick right now with the flu?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm just always like this." And prior to this, sorry guys, I've got like a family of bats like nesting in the tree outside, so you might be able to hear them right now. But prior to this, I'd had stints in with specialists, ear, nose and throat specialists, doctors who would just medicate me with antihistamines or steroid nasal sprays. And just, it was just the way I was, you know, they were considering surgery to kind of get in there and try and see if they could clear my nose that way. And it wasn't until I had this session with the therapist and she asked me if I ate dairy. And I said, yeah, every day, you know, cheese, milk, yogurt. I'd have yogurt every single day. And she said, just try and remove it for 3 weeks and see if that helps. So I did. And that moment literally changed my life. So I finished the colonic on the toilet. As you would know, Bobby, you finish on the toilet and, you know, as gravity works, it draws everything else out. And I actually got up and remember thinking, is this actually how I'm meant to feel?
Yeah.
And that was the pivotal moment for me. Because I just thought, far out, like I've just found this therapy that I haven't felt like this before. And what happened was she was moving interstate in 3 weeks' time. And I was like, this sucks. It's like losing your hairdresser, you know? And I had 2 more sessions with her. And I think on the 3rd session, it was like, I hated my job. I worked in corporate. I worked for the government here. I was there for 9 years. It was literally stealing my soul. And I remember it was like this message just plonked into my head and was like, you need to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to do this. And initially I thought, no way, that's disgusting. Like, I don't even know how she does that for a job, you know? Gross. Like, who wants to look at people's butts and poo all day? And then I had a session with a friend who's a spiritual healer, and she was like, I just feel like this is literally being delivered to you. And so what I did was I bought the business and then I did the study. So I quit my job. I did everything backwards. I quit my job. I bought the business and then I did my study. So I look back now, I was super brave. Like, I would never do something like that now. And 6 years on, you know, I've done over 3,000 colonics and I change people's lives every single day. And, you know, I've been able to impact you from like thousands and thousands of kilometers away. And I know that this is what I'm here to do, to like facilitate people's healing process.
It's nuts. I like can't even stress it enough. Like, and it's funny because you were like, you're thinking, oh, I was called to do this and I did everything backwards. I'm like, I know your numbers. I know that you got this spiritual thing that will guide you. And so I'm glad that you answered that call. It was supposed to happen the way it did. But for me, I was super nervous. And then even anxiety coming up to the event. And I'm just like, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. It's all good. And like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it was just the embarrassment of never having shown my butt to anyone and like having then suddenly to go this far into it. It was like a big deal for me. So you and I got a chance to get on a call. You answered all of these like really crazy questions. And it was just like, okay, I think I'm ready for this. I'd already committed to knowing that I was going to get it done, but I hadn't, you know, I actually hadn't gotten it done yet. And the facility was clean. It was really nice. It's like a full service clinic where they do like a lot of different things. And then the colonics hydrotherapist, Chantal David, was she operates her small little business within there. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to book in with this person. I went in. Me and Sally went and got it done. And the first time, it's just, this is weird to think. Maybe some people, because I started talking about it. People were like, I'm just going to take your word for it. I'm like, I'm not selling it right. But I didn't have okay, it's gonna super weird, guys. Okay, like, Lynn's not going to flinch at this. Maybe you guys might be like, this is weird. You're talking about your boo. I didn't pass that much. Okay, so through the tube, there wasn't very much. but there was a very large garlic clove looking object that she's like, "Ooh, what's this?" And it was kind of like sticking, and I felt this like gross, like negative feeling. And I was like, "This was it. This was the little demon that was like attacking my insides and all this stuff." And that wasn't like a full on like crazy release. It was just kind of like I see. I later found out that I was holding on a little bit because I was, you know, you get a little tense. And it was crazy because the second time I went, I passed a lot of old stuff that was like, okay, now your bowel is hydrated. And even after the first time, it wasn't that I passed a lot. I felt amazing. I felt weird. I felt like lightheaded, like kind of disconnected. I was like deep in thought. I felt when I breathed, when you like if you breathe, you just like, you know, you go, and then right at the very end, your chest starts to hurt a little bit if you breathe in too hard. I could breathe in like an extra 20%. And I had more room in my diaphragm. I had more room inside of my lungs to actually like exhaust a breath. I felt cleaner. I felt a lot more lighter. And it was crazy. It wasn't like I lost a lot of weight or I didn't notice any physical change in my body. I noticed an immediate change in my mood and in my energy. And me and Sally were just like, we were both on cloud nine. It was unbelievable. And I was wondering, like, can you explain a little bit as to, I mean, I know I talk about it, but like, what's the deal here? Like, why is it that, you know, your mood is affected by your stomach health? Like there's the direct correlation there, right?
Yeah, totally. So I always say, you know, with that, that mood and emotional side, like colonics can be almost quite euphoric at times. Sometimes like, and sorry for anyone that's got a light stomach or anything, but the smell and like the stuff that just has putrefied in your body that you release at the end is, like you said, Bobby, like you can just feel this absolute clarity. But what happens is, so we've got our serotonin, which we know is our happy mood neurotransmitter. Now, there's up to about 90% of that is stemmed from our gut. So that's why now they're finding links between gut health and mental health. So this all correlates back to our microbiome. So that's the mix-up of our good and bad gut bacteria. This is a really hot topic at the moment, and it's because of the research that's gone into it. So what they're discovering is we've got this microbiome. It's kind of like a rainforest. So it's got the good stuff and the bad stuff. So it's got some other pathogens, things like your parasites, your yeast, mold, and fungus. And what they're finding is if they can diversify that and make it more of like a good ecosystem, like more of that beneficial bacteria, they're actually finding that it can alter these mood disorders. So things like anxiety, depression, ADD, ADHD, autism, Asperger's, as far as Alzheimer's. So it's a really, really interesting space. And I don't know what the research is like at your end of the world, but what they're doing now in Australia is something called fecal transplants. So they're actually, going into someone's gut who has, I guess, what they would see as a really, really great ecosystem, and actually extracting some of the poo and putting it into a gut where people might have been dealing with disease or ailments for years. So one more recently was a case of someone that had multiple sclerosis, and they were able to take the fecal, the stool out of someone with a good diversity of gut bacteria and put it in this other person, and surprise, surprise, the disease started changing. And the problem around that is the way that we live. So we're in a Western world. You guys are in Canada. I'm in Australia. We follow what I call the standard Australian diet, the SAD diet, and it's just full of crap. And basically there was a researcher who ate really well over here, so ate a really, really good diet, but they ended up going over to Africa and living off the land for 2 weeks. So he was eating, you know, root vegetables directly out of the dirt, and freshly, like meat when they hunted it and killed it. So kind of taking us back to what we should be doing, our caveman years. And basically they looked at his gut bacteria prior to when he went, which was quite good because he was actually a really healthy person. He wasn't eating our standard Australian diet. And then 2 weeks after, he'd been in Africa, and the difference in his gut bacteria was unbelievable. So, we are living in this world where we are constantly washing our hands or asking our kids like not to play in the dirt because they're going to get dirt in their mouth. But really, that's what we should be doing. We should be opening them up to that kind of thing. But that's where, the mood stuff, it's just the beginning, to be honest. It's known that we have more neurotransmitters in our gut than we do on our head. It's known that there's a clear link between gut health and mood health. There's a clear emotional link there. Because you think something, you get butterflies, or you have diarrhea and your gut tells your head to find a toilet. So we know that there's this link there where they constantly talk to one another. And as I said, it's just the beginning. Who knows, in 10 or 20 years' time, is it going to be at the point where we can actually take poo capsules to like poo supplements? Who knows? Like, do you know what I mean? But it's a really, really interesting time.
That's really nuts. I can't imagine what that would be like to like transplant someone else's stool into you. And to think, guys, like just imagine, this is what happens when you don't eat healthy. This is what happens when you don't take care of yourself. You're not hydrated. You end like some people, they'll never just voluntarily go and say, hey, I think I'm going to go and get a colonics. It's usually like, even when I went the first time, the girl was like, which doctor referred you? Like she assumed that I was getting professional advice from a physician being like, hey, go take a look at this. And I'm like, actually it was more of a spiritual understanding. But it was crazy because I, knowing your numbers, understand the spiritual relevance to this. And when I look at the diaphragm, the sexual organs, your colon, your intestine, your stomach, all of this stuff happens in here. Women, like babies are born here. Happy Mother's Day, by the way.
Thank you.
Like this, there's this feeling of like you guys do a lot of stuff inside of, or human beings do a lot of stuff in this engine part of our being. And if we're 90% water or something along those lines, it's probably a pretty good idea to make sure that we stay hydrated in that region of our life as well. And it was crazy. And for me, I'm thinking like I went from, I'll get it done, I guess, to now just being like, you know what, it's worth the small, because even the second time I started to get that anxiety. But on the second time, I was like, you know what, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it release. And I made a mental conversation with myself about letting go and like, like this no longer serves me. And all of the hurt that I collected over the last 3 decades of my life, the abuse and all of the stuff that I put my body through or other people put me through, I was ready to actually release that and not hold on to it anymore. So it was a much more fluid release. And there was a lot of stuff coming out that was just like, it felt like afterwards I was like, this was the combo effect. The first one, my therapist was like, this is the icebreaker. We're just going to get to know each other. And it was crazy because I at certain points we were lost in conversation. And then at certain points I was looking up at the ceiling trying to say something, but like being awkward to feel like, oh, she went up my bum. And like, you guys do a lot because I mean, you're dealing with emotions. And so when I came out of there, I was like, no wonder you guys call yourselves therapists, because you have to be there with someone there. So do you usually like being a spiritual kind of like background person, I would imagine you've got this number. Do you kind of like, because I felt my therapist do this to me, start getting people to talk about stuff that they want to let go of or that's going on with them? Do you find that kind of helps juggle along some of the backlog?
Yeah, 100% it does. And that's, there's so many examples where I could say that I've treated someone and you just try and find that sore point without, stepping, because I'm not a counselor, I'm not a trained counselor, but there was a girl who I treated numerous times before, and I knew how her colonics went. They were great. And basically, I had her in this day and just nothing was moving at all. And I remember thinking, what the hell's going on here? Like, I knew exactly how her treatments went. So why is this one so different? And I just said to her, oh, how's your boyfriend going? And then that was it. She just said, well, he broke up with me. He broke my heart. And that moment literally the amount of stuff that started flying out of her, I thought, that's it. That's what was holding her back. So there is this enormous emotional connection with colonics. And that's why for you, Bobby, like, even though you might be going in saying, yeah, but I am letting go. I am letting go. Like, I know that's what I have to do. It's not always up to your head to decide when you're ready to let go. So it's, you know, about breathing into it, setting intentions, talking it out, like talking to your therapist. And that's what we want. Like, we want you guys to have the best colonic. And at the end of the day, we want you to walk out of that room and feel amazing. Trust me, if nothing moves, we take it on us. We want you to have the best possible experience. So that emotional part of the colonic is just huge. I've got another really personal friend of mine who her partner was killed, and he was killed. He was stabbed and killed, and she came in 3 weeks after his death. And she was broken, you know, and I, of course, treated her for free because I'm a giver and an empath, and was like, I just need to help this girl. And nothing budged. And I just said to her, you're just not ready. Like, you're just not ready for this at the moment. And I treat her now regularly, and she has literally the best colonics. Like, so, you know, this is like 3 or 4 years later down the track where she's done her healing. But I always remind her of that moment of like, do you remember when you just emotionally, you were just not ready to let go?
That's nuts. That's so, and like, so there was some kind of like technical things that I wanted to go over just so people kind of know. Are you okay if we like kind of like help people? Because I know there's going to be people out here. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, the work that me and Lynn are going to do together, we're going to help people the first time. Like, a lot of people who are like, ugh, so how far does it go up? And, you know, like, did you make a mess everywhere? Because when I went in there was like a pee pad, like I put for my dog. Like, oh God, what's gonna happen here? I like, do I need? This is gonna be so embarrassing. And it was pretty cool because, you know, she did use some lube. Okay, so it didn't go in dry. Didn't go in dry.
Rather not.
Well, not that I don't want to. I mean, no, it's not that. It's just that, like, I was like, oh God, please, just, you know, like, what do you do? Like, if you never put anything up there, you're gonna have some reservations about letting anything go in there. It's an exit-only place, right? But I clean my car. I mean, like, clean my room. So if I don't clean the insides of myself, there's something missing. But so how far up do you guys go?
Yeah, it's only a few centimeters. And I think, you know, as therapists, I've done over 3,000 colonics. So I guess it's I just think, what about people that wax people all day or deliver babies or, I don't know, those types of things. We become so desensitized, not to you and your situation, but to what we see. Like, it's no different to what we would have seen on many, many, many occasions before. So the actual speculum itself, it's no bigger than my thumb, I always say, especially to guys, because they are very hard work. So we have to be like so much more nurturing with the male people. There's a reason women give birth.
Thank you.
So it just goes in a few centimeters. Of course, we use some gel. Like, you're not going to want that any other way. So the gel can be quite cooling, which can be that initial, like, well, you know, especially if you're in a colder city or country, just a few centimeters. And there's no pain or discomfort. Hey, Bobby, like, the only pain that, no, not pain. The only discomfort you would feel is because literally you're like, nothing's going in there. Nothing's going in there. So I always say, like, the more that you breathe, the more you're going to relax into that. Yeah. It's the part that, people find the most daunting. Like, we totally understand that. I remember having my first colonic and I had 2 dreams about that speculum. And then there I was, rolled on my side, and it went in, and I was like, far out, Lynn. Like you totally like worked yourself up for that. So no pain or discomfort, and you know, your therapist should be able to guide you through that super easy. I'm a talker, so I talk the whole time. I say it's going to be a little bit cool, a little bit more, like just so you know what to expect. I think that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's tough because I would imagine you get some people out of like the doctor prescribed them to go and do this, and so they're kind of awkward, being like, "What are you doing?" But like
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. So she's gonna put me under this blanket. You know, she's gonna do one of these and just sort of like put it in. Nope, she went in right in there and let's look right at my butt, and I'm like, oh my god, you're looking at my bum. And like I wanted to, you know, not be so Indian, so I was like, you know, just doing a manscape down there when I wanted to make sure, you know, it's just like. But and then I was thinking she's probably trying not to laugh at my weird job that I was trying to like clean my butt or like, you know, like get it all cleaned up in there. Because yeah, and so there was no mess. There was no, you know, like
Wow.
there was no stool anywhere. I didn't get to see the speculum, right? I didn't get to see it when she pulled it out. She put it into a cloth, but
Yeah, we hide that. We hide that, guys. We don't want you to see that.
Ooh, so you mean that's where all the juicy stuff would show up there?
Not at all. I think the speculums just look way bigger than what they are. And like the entire length of it, as opposed to the tiny part that goes in you, is what is like, if I showed everyone, oh yeah, I'm just going to pop this in, it's just not, it's not ideal. Unless someone really wants to see it, I'll say, are you sure you want to see it? And they're like, yeah, I'm cool with it, you know?
Yeah, it's not very thick either. It was like a very small feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
That's right.
yeah, I honestly, I got the value in it. I would absolutely 1000% recommend that everyone should do this like at least once or twice a year, you know, to like really flush things out. I know I'm absolutely gonna commit. The feeling is way too good after I'm done to ever think that the queasiness of putting something, and that's like the premier only experience that anything's ever gonna go up my bum is this feeling of getting a colonics, because I'm cool with that now. But I found a really good therapist. I totally would have let you do it if I was up in Australia. You're Northern Australia, right?
Yeah, I'm in Darwin, so we're in the tropics. We have like 2 seasons. It's wet or it's dry.
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really powerful place to live. Definitely get more seasons. We get a little bit wet, a lot of bit wet, a little bit dry. No, I'm just kidding. But you know, it's where I was blessed to have you share this with me, because I feel like I became a new man. I felt like I cleaned out a lot of stuff that was bugging me or plaguing me for years. So to know that like I had like a skin, I had always had a skin irritation my whole life, and it was like eczema, some sort of like a psoriasis, eczema, something. And when I got to the water, it really cooled and calmed down. But then if I got bit by a mosquito, it'd flare up again. So I ended up getting one bite from a mosquito, and it like just sort of lingered. And after my colonics, I've noticed that my legs started to really clear up. And so it really links into a lot of different places in the health. But it's cool because afterwards I didn't want to eat the same anymore, and I wanted to sort of keep going on my health. But you did me such a great service, and now I can absolutely say 100%. I know it's kind of weird, but you're gonna want to get one of these done. How long do you guys go up there for?
Anywhere between 35 to 40. So 45 minutes is usually standard, but it just all depends. Like I just say to my clients, if you've had enough at any point, you just let me know, and vice versa, just to honor my advice. And if I feel like I need to get you off sooner, I will do that. But you know, with the skin thing, Bobby, like the way skin issues are hugely gut related. And basically, you know, the body does detoxify in 5 different ways, and the biggest organ being the skin, the most productive being the bowel, and then we've got lymphatic, urinary, and lungs. But a lot of the time, skin irritations, just take it back a few notches and look at your food. So, you know, main culprits are gluten, wheat, dairy, soy, and eggs. And what you find is if you really strip your diet back, you know, your skin will magically get better. We are what we eat, you know, and I just think that's why I'm such a huge advocate of food, because I've had a personal experience with it. And I've had like hundreds and hundreds of experiences with people in the clinic who have cleaned up their diet or done food intolerance testing, and yeah, magically symptoms are better. And that's the other thing, like, you know, you talk about doctors' referrals and stuff. Sometimes we are like people's last resort.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's people that love colonics and do openly just want to come in. And I feel like it's something that is building a bit more momentum, especially with gut health being such a hot topic here in Australia. But sometimes for people, we're their last resort. Like they've literally given up on everything else. And we're dealing with all kinds of symptoms. Huge, you know, constipation is a huge issue. Like I had a lady in the other day that hadn't pooed for 30 days. So if you can imagine the level of food that's just putrefying in her system and poisoning her system, plus how do you even think straight?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely a really beautiful space to be in to encourage healing and start people's healing. I feel super blessed.
It's super crazy because you nailed it before. We were like, "Oh, I'm an empath," and I looked at your chart because I do numerology. So I saw her birthday. I did her spiritual colonics, if you will, and I looked at your numbers, and I'm like, I get it. I understand that spiritual space that you create for someone of non-judgment, quiet feeling where someone could actually confess their energetic garbage or their energetic waste, and you come out of it feeling like a champ. Like I was blessed that I had made that connection with someone already before I decided to get it done out on the island. Someone was going to buy Sally's bidet. She was selling a bidet, and this girl was just like, "Oh, I've got to run it for my clinic." And I'm like, "Oh, what do you do?" Client, "Hey, that's cool. I'm going to keep a hold of you." And so I collected this person and just came in perfectly right after our conversation where I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm sick and tired of these parasites inside of, that's what I felt. This negative energy that was inside of my, like this putrid bacteria that was basically sitting on my neurotransmitters like a freaking like switchboard, being like, give me the bad food, give me the negative food, give me the hangry, or I'm gonna get food coma or all that stuff. And it's tough because your body will identify with it. And there may be some people who are like, no, 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 I'm never gonna do it. They're probably the same ones who are going after macas. Is that how you guys say it? Macas?
Yeah.
You guys doing macas every day, right? I was like, what is that? What is that? That's some sort of like bird food. And I Googled it. I'm like, no, that's Australian from McDonald's. So
we shorten everything.
That's fine. And so that was, I just had no idea. I thought it was like, that sounds like the kookaburras. Like, I'm like, is that some sort of weird bird? This is a macas. It's fine. But yeah, so I mean, that's what happens. People identify with it and they want to put that stuff in their system. And so what would you give advice to someone who's never had it done before to help them feel a little bit more comfortable, or, you know, if they're sitting on the fence or they're kind of like, I want to listen, but I don't know. Like, what would you say to them?
I think first and foremost is, you know, you said you felt like, is it Chantal, your therapist?
Yeah.
Yeah. How she held a space of no judgment. So there is no judgment in that room. It is completely confidential. And, you know, I don't come from an angelic past or anything. I was extreme alcohol and drug abuser myself. So it's not like if someone sits there and tells me that they're taking drugs that I would ever judge them. I think on a physical level, if you, like, there's no pain or discomfort. And I think, like you keep saying, Bobby, the after feeling just really outweighs any kind of awkwardness of any of, you know, the speculum going in or what's coming out, or we're going to see your poo or whatever. Yeah, we've done many of these before. So trust us, like, as much as you're special to us, your bum is no different to anyone else's.
It's funny. Sorry, keep going.
No.
Yeah, I was very nervous about it. Okay, I was very nervous about this thing happening, and I'm like, oh gosh, she's gonna go up my bum. And I thought she wasn't gonna look. She looked right inside my rectum. I felt like she was looking, peering into my soul, my black soul. And I'm like, ah! And then, you know, it happened. And then afterwards, I'm like, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter that it was uneasy. Best experience ever. Holy shit, you have to do this. You know, and I was the person who was like, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. And then getting out of it, being like, I'm doing this again. And we literally, me and Sally booked for and paid for 4 more sessions, like 2 for each of us. At the end of our time together, was like, no, I'm getting this done. And after my results of the second time, I felt even more lighter, like a slighter skip to my step. Like the birds were singing to me. Like you remove this sludge layer from you, and it was crazy. Even after she was like poking my stomach, she's like, "Oh, you're really hydrated this time." And I was like, "Well, we went up there last time, so I guess you absorb water up your bum." And was it you that told me that military people are instructed to take it straight up during dehydration?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it absorbs water and electrolytes. And that's why we always say, that first session, and it can be really, as much as we try not to get frustrated, it can be really frustrating as a practitioner when someone comes in and they've had 40 years of abuse of their body and they expect everything to turn around in one session. It's like any alternative therapy. Like, you don't go to the chiropractor once, you don't get a massage once and expect everything to be moved. Like, you don't have a session with Bobby once. Like, it's something that you're working on. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just think, like, for you to actually go back a second time and maybe a third time, Bobby, that's when the first time is, we're just hydrating you. Like, especially here in the tropics, so many people are dehydrated. I promise you, it's that second session, it's that third session that you book in. And even if you do them on consecutive days, you have no idea what you will move in that second, third, or fourth session.
That's true.
You relax more as well, Bobby. Like, initially you can be really apprehensive. I don't know what's happening. That second session, although you said, yes, you were still a bit nervous, that's expected. But you know what the process is going to be like now.
I was looking forward to it, and I'm like, this is so crazy. I'm gonna love the feeling after, and the conversation got deeper. But then I called her out on it because Chantel's got really spiritual numbers too, and I'm like, is this a thing? Like, you gotta have to, because I would imagine, being in the field that I'm in, that there are certain people who are energetically sensitive to others, and if you were to do a line of work like this, you may be inclined to take other people's energy on the most negative form. And not to say that you get poo splattered on you or anything, but the feeling is that you would energetically hold what they do. So do you like crystal or sage your place, or do you do stuff like that to sort of get the...
Yeah, 100%. I think I learned the hard way, and it was probably my second year into business, and I'll never forget it. I was actually treating a Canadian girl, and they were doing roadworks out the front of my clinic, and I could just hear this constant hammering and beeping of the machines, and I just felt like it was like hammering directly into my soul, and I had a full panic attack. So I remember, looking at my clock, and I had 22 minutes to go, all the twos. And I was just like, you're just going to have to get through this. And I couldn't even maintain a conversation with this girl. And all I could think about was running out into my back room and hiding. And I literally finished the session, cancelled the rest of my day. I gave one client 15 minutes notice, and I rang my partner and said, you have to come home. Like, I feel like I'm losing the plot. I feel like I'm actually losing it. I don't know what's wrong. And I found out it was a panic attack. And after that, I am that in tune now with how I'm feeling. Like, I know when I start to get a bit of anxiety that I'm not doing the things that I need to protect my energy. So definitely use crystals, definitely sage my clinic out. A huge essential oil user. Mantras. I know if I've got what I call an energy vampire in, I will literally visualize, and while they're talking to me, have a really good knack of being able to maintain a conversation, but also say to myself, it's all right, Lynn, just block it. Like, they're going to be out soon, but still give them as much as I can, but knowing that I've got to protect myself. And the other thing for me, it's a really weird one, just showering. Like, showering at the end of the day, getting the water like over my body, through my hair. Other things, of course, exercise is a huge for me. But definitely, Bobby, as therapists, we take on a lot of emotional shit. There was probably 12 months ago, it was crazy. I took on 3 people's physical ailments. So a lady came in with a booming headache and she left, and I had a booming headache. Another lady came in with this is probably a bit too much information, urinary tract infection. And a couple of days later, I got one. Have not had one in 10 years. And then there was one more thing. I can't remember what it was. And I just was like, holy shit, I'm actually taking on their physical ailments. Like I need to, but it's constant reminder, you know, it's not like I'm totally like proactive all the time. Life is busy for me. So it's generally, I get to the point of, oh shit, something needs to change. And then I implement it. But I do crystals every day, essential oils constantly diffusing in my clinic, and just lots of like mind talk. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so do you ever like get into that with clients and you're like, this is a spiritual one, when you guys are both like dealing with, sometimes you can get into things like past life or stuff that's not genetics, or does that ever sort of surface?
Totally. I just, I love my job because I literally have had people from bikies tattooed from head to toe to politicians to like people that do the most weirdest jobs, and I have the best conversations every single day. So I feel like I'm a very informed person because I learn from people all the time. I learn their story. I learn what they do for a job. And I have insanely deep spiritual conversations with people where people can feel like they're in a safe place to say, look, I don't know if this is going to sound weird to you. And I just say, it's not. Whatever you got to say, bring it on. Like when people say, I feel like, you know, stuff's starting to happen for me. I'm like, yeah, that's right. You're getting there. But totally like, oh, I love it. The conversations I have with people where there are no limits, you know, we just say any weird, crazy stuff that's going on in our life, and it's totally accepted.
That's awesome. You make it real. Like, and even Chantal did that too, is like poop jokes and just like no big deal and like making everybody feel comfortable. And I like that. I really do appreciate that. And it's funny that because I'm a spiritual kind of guy, I saw this as a spiritual cleanse more than a physical cleanse. And that's exactly what it was, Jack. I knew I had to do this, but you created that inside of your session when I was doing it for you. You created that space for me, that light bulb that turned on that was like, I can't just talk about this anymore. I'm ready now to actually go through this experience and actually have it myself. It was just so super powerful. Oh my God. Yeah, I wish I was out in Darwin to get it done. But yeah, it's nuts. Are there things to, like you looked at the site when you're like, send me this person's site. Let me check. And so it was nice because you're like, oh, it looks super awesome, you know? Yeah. And so that makes me question. I'm like, are there like shady places where people just want to look at your bum, and like, are there weird spaces like that you just probably should stay away from?
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know what Canada is like, but in Australia, it's still quite an unregulated industry. So, you know, I did check out the clinic that you're going to, and, you know, they look like they do everything in such a holistic way. They were doing like heavy metal testing. And I mean, these are things that general GPs are just, it's not even in their scope of thought. So it looked really, I felt like you were going to be in really good hands with the therapist you're going to, Bobby. But yeah, basically some tips are just to make sure that you get a really good feel for the clinic and the therapist. Obviously, you want to check that the place is looking clean and the equipment that they're using is pre-packaged. Generally, water should be filtered and the filter should be changed regularly, but that's something you're not going to know. But you can ask, you know, what's the water like? And just, yeah, make sure you get a good feeling out of it. I mean, there was, you know, I went over to Bali and run a clinic over there in a health retreat about 4 years ago, and was so out of alignment for me because they were charging, you know, $6,000 or $7,000 to go on this health retreat for the week, and they were reusing plastic speculums on people. And I actually found out I was pregnant 2 days before I went over, so I had to turn around and come home again. But ethically, I just actually could not do that. you know, as far as they wanted to keep the bedding. Bobby, you mentioned the pee pad or whatever. So it's just making sure that you have a really good feel for your therapist and for the clinic, and you have confidence in the person that's doing it. I think Bobby, Chantal had been doing it since 2002 or something, and she's also a nurse, which is what she works at the clinic as. And I was like, you're going to be fine with this lady. She did the closed system therapy. As first-time users, we would suggest going to someone that treats the closed method of colonics. It just means that there's a therapist with you the entire time. And a lot of the time, if people have reported a bad colonics experience, it's because they've used an open system, and therefore you are responsible for doing your own colonic. And sorry, guys, but you actually don't know what you're doing. So, yeah, best to have someone that's fully trained, like by your side, facilitating it for you.
It was good to have that there, because I would have just been like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay, splash the water, gotta get out of there.
And it's for us to be able to say, like, what you're experiencing. If you're experiencing a little bit of cramping, or it's gas moving through, I want you to breathe through it. It's going to pass really soon. Like, it's about us, like, coaching you through that process, not just leaving you to your own accord to just have no idea why you might be feeling a bit crampy, or how much water you're putting in there, or any of that stuff.
So like half an hour, 45 minutes. When I book mine, she books an hour time slot. So I guess there's going to be some time after to sit on the toilet and let the rest go out. I wasn't too impressed with my after toilet releases. Like, it wasn't like I was like, whoa, like, wasn't so much. Yeah. It was just the excess little bit of water that was basically coming back out. So what happens here? So you put this, there's one speculum, and then it has two tubes, one for the inline and then one for the release. And so what, we're putting water up there until you kind of feel that sort of like balloony feeling. It feels cool, like temperature wise, like you've got some ice cubes in there or something, or like someone's on.
So she might treat a bit cooler. Generally, we treat around it's usually around 35 degrees. I do treat a bit cooler here because our water in Darwin actually doesn't get that cold because we're tropical climate. So the coldest it gets about 25. And I find, you know, when you're working with parasites or when you're working with constipation, it's really good to treat cooler. But yeah, basically you just have the one speculum in you. There are two tubes attached to the outside of that. There's the water in that tube, and then there's a waste exit tube. The waste goes through the tubing, and then there's a little lit up screen on our machine where it passes through, which for some people, you know, I would say if you don't want to watch it, if it grosses you out, don't watch it. Like, close your eyes, turn your head. However, as therapists, we can gauge a lot of knowledge from that. We know where we're working. We know what's coming out. We know, are you digesting fats that well? Are you chewing properly? Like, is there gas? Are you constipated? Is maybe your bile not working? Is your gallbladder not working? These are all things that we can, we're never here to actually diagnose. So that's not our role, but we are here to drop little gold coins in your head to be like, maybe you need to chase that up. Maybe you need to chase that up. Basically, it's a gentle infusion. I work in more of a soaking method, whereas I bring the water in so super slow, really low pressure. And you work between these little kind of wave-like urges that come and go. So you feel like you need to poo, and it goes away, and it comes back, and it goes away. And that's just water traveling through, bumping into something, pressure rises, you get that feeling to go. We build you up really gentle to that urge. You know, it does become quite strong, and that's our cue to do a release. And, you know, I don't know if Chantal did a bit of abdominal massage, Bobby, or did she do that with you?
The little buzzer thing, like this knuckly thing that it's just like you're pushed on your stomach. So
yeah, sure.
A chance to move it around a little bit.
Yeah, it's a really sacred area for some people. It's not really an area that people get touched on, and I'm always super aware, you know, if a lady's had babies and she's full of stretch marks, and it's a really vulnerable area for people, or if a man's a bit overweight, so we don't always have to touch you. It does help us. With men, I definitely just do it over the clothing. With women, I offer over the clothing. Most women are like, yeah, no worries, just do what you need to do. And again, you know, we see so many bums, but we see so many bellies as well. So if you are full of stretch marks, or you have had a tummy tuck, or whatever it is, don't worry. Like, we're not judging you. We're just there to give you the best session. And, that massage with the belly is actually really nice.
Yeah, she didn't give me a belly massage, but she did like give me a little massager thing to go in there for sure.
And did Sally get a massage or no?
I'm not too sure how she got it done, but I'm guessing that it was one or the other.
It might be, what
She's like, all right, let's push this in there. So she did like actually check what was going on in there, but she was impressed. She was telling me that I did good, so I was happy with that. And that was definitely a must do, a very must do.
We would never tell you that you did terrible though, Bobby.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, definitely. Especially after like, what was wrong with you? Can you imagine? I would have just been like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You didn't do well enough. Next time you need to step it up.
Yeah, well, I mean, she said that to me in a very much nicer way, because by the time the second time happened, I was like, okay, I get this. I understand now that I'm supposed to just like go poo without forcing it, or like, let it come out without having to like push it out. So that was definitely something that I found was really powerful.
Yeah, no pushing. It's just about letting go. Like you guys actually don't have to do anything. You just lay there, breathe. The breath is the best because we're engaging your parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest. So breathe, let us just do the job, and no pushing, nothing. It's just going to happen when it's ready to.
Yeah, I still feel kind of queasy about it, but it's not enough to nearly enough to hold me back. I would absolutely recommend you guys take this seriously, get it done, even to the point where I was like, I'm going to take a move outside of numerology for this one, and I wanted to put something together so that your clients can find you. So if people want to find you, where are they going here? Like, what's the deal? Like, you're in Darwin, so you're going to probably show people around you.
That's all right. I'm quite big on my socials. So I'm at the Healthy Gut Centre on Facebook and the Healthy Gut Centre on Instagram. Obviously, my website is thehealthygutcentre.com.au. You can book online as well, which is super, super easy. I'm often, speaking at events and, out there in the community, kind of getting to as many of those health kind of things as possible. But I always open my space up. If people, like I did with you, Bobby, like if people need to have a bit of coaching before they come in, I remember what it was like, guys. I've had my first colonic once as well. So I'm definitely happy to go through that with people further. But that's where you'll find me. We're located in Parap, a beautiful little suburb in Darwin. I have another girl working for me, Melody, the little 21-year-old powerhouse. So, and we do lots of food testing. We do essential oil consults, and we just really hold a beautiful space we do lots of referrals. We work with naturopaths and dietitians and doctors and all kinds of things. So
I think the most important thing that you did for me was to help me open up that space, and I appreciate you so much for that, because I feel like a new person, and this is something that I'm adding to my health regime, is to get it done every so often. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. This is just, it's super weird. A lot of people are just gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, trust me, you got to get in with this. And I felt like having you showcase some of your energy would have really did for a lot of people what it did for me, which was to give them the confidence to say, I'm just going to go and get this done. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, I feel so blessed, Bobby. Like, as I said at the start of this, to be able to impact someone that's thousands and thousands of kilometers away without even physically meeting you in person, that makes me the happiest. So I'm so glad you found Chantal, and hopefully this is just enough of a push for the people that are kind of sitting on the fence to take the leap of faith and go get it done, and don't Absolutely. Die wondering.
Yeah, no, definitely. And don't die with your shit still in you,
Yeah.
They say don't die with your dreams still in you. I'm like, yeah, that's true. But real stuff here. So I appreciate you so much for spending time with me doing this. We'll call it. There we go. We're at about an hour. Time flies. But thank you so much for helping me with this and sharing your story with us. I appreciate you. Thank you so much more than you'll ever know. You changed my life in such a really huge way.
Oh, thank you, Bobby. And likewise, I mean, the work with you is something I'll continue to do as well. So,
Hey, there you go. Your team is going to be growing pretty quickly. I'll tell you that.
yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great night. And thanks. Thank you so much, Lynn. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.